Everyone, welcome to DreamlandXR, a CS partner program. My name is Natascha French. I'm the principal at Scale Strategies, helping AR, VR, and XR companies scale, but also I am the president of the LA chapter for the VR AR Association. I'm super excited to jump back into my previous worlds of holograms to moderate today's panel with some of the leading hologram experts across the world. Just to kind of start off and want to give some landscape of where we are today, but over the past 10 years, holograms, as we know them, have evolved from, one-time experiences and now, be able to have them in the home, palm of your hand potentially. And as devices become more sophisticated and 5G is thrown into the picture and content creation becoming more accessible, we've experienced holograms from concerts to live presentations to telepresence, interactive experiences. But now as these technologies have grown, I'm super excited today to learn what is possible today and where do we see ourselves in the next year, 5 years with holograms. So to get started, we brought together some experts from around the world, and I'm just going to go ahead and have them all of them introduce themselves. So starting off, I'd like to welcome Stuart Hill with Holotronica and founder of Hologauze. If you could introduce yourself, and then I'll go on to the next panelist.
Hello, my name's Stuart Hill. I'm the managing director of Holotronica Limited, and I'm the inventor of Hologauze.
Awesome. And I'd love to now jump over to David Nussbaum, who's the founder of Portl.
Natascha, thank you. David Nussbaum, I'm the founder and CEO of Portl. We create hologram projection machines which allow people to beam from wherever to wherever else in real time. And they're about the size of a snack machine, so they'll fit easily in any conference room or in any hotel lobby.
Great, thank you. And now Molly Lavick, who is the founder of Mentor Insight Inc., who also works with Portl, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Natascha. Hello, everyone. Very excited and honored to be on this panel. My work focuses on commercializing the inventions of some of the most visionary people in the holographic technology space and bringing them into the marketplace. I get to work as example with David Nussbaum with the Portl, and where we say if you can't be there, you can beam there. So delighted to be here today.
Great. And now I'd also introduce Gary Sheffield, who's with JLC Hologram.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I work for JLC Hologram, but I work across all hologram forms. I work with Stuart, I work with David. And I concentrate a lot these days on creating content, especially bringing back people who have sadly passed.
Gotcha. And we also had us joining Jeff Pezzuti, who is the CEO of iIllusion. It looks like his video might have dropped again. So we're going to go ahead and get started with some of the questions. And David, if you maybe want to text him.
He's back, Natascha, in just the right amount of time too, because I was going to do my best Jeff Pezzuti impression, but I'll go ahead and let him.
Well, welcome back, Jeff. We're just looking for you. So if you want to do a quick intro, and then we'll get started.
Oh, is it my turn already? Oh
yes.
My God!
Well, you've been gone 10 minutes, so
yeah, it feels like an eternity, honestly. Well, first off, thanks for having me. My name is Jeff Pezzuti. I founded iIllusion in 2016. I founded the company to focus on the live music space with the intent of bringing back my idols and artists that I loved and putting them back in front of a live audience. So we started with Ronnie James Dio. We took him to Europe in 2017 to much accolades from the fans and media alike. We went back, retooled the show, signed Frank Zappa, did the same thing with the Bizarre World of Frank Zappa in 2019. And then we put Dio back out again in 2019 as well. Reviews from, whether it was Rolling Stone or Billboard or forever. Everyone seemed to love the shows and allowed us to continue. We have 2 new shows that we're working on right now. We also had plans to, we've got other things in the works, but a show that we're working on beside the two new ones is another live event, which is going to take place from Los Angeles to the UK, which will be in August of this year, which will be exciting as well. So just all over the map, but we're excited about showing that this is a much needed space for live music because of especially because of the pandemic, and allowing older artists who are 70 and above, living artists, some kind of platform that they can still perform in front of an audience and not have the risk of going out there, especially if they have pre-existing health conditions. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and it's a $25 billion industry in the US that's on hold right now. So you could see that if you show some kind of just give them some runway, they'll figure it out. And we're excited about being that runway.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. So to kind of get started, I know we've talked a lot about some of the entertainment applications, business applications. I'd love to hear from each of you, kind of where are we now and what is possible? We all are waiting for that Obi-Wan Kenobi moment. And I think to many people's surprises, we are a lot closer, than we think we are with that. And so I'd love for each of you to kind of tell us what you're doing right now or what is possible just kind of in the hologram industry in general. So Stuart, if you want to get started, and then we'll kind of jump in from there.
Well, it was always the dream. I've been doing this for like 30 years, doing not holograms, but doing visuals for over 30 years now. And it was always the dream to try and create the R2D2 hologram effect, and so the Hologauze is kind of my best shot at it. The hologram projector doesn't exist, and I think, so I developed Hologauze so you could get the look of that of a hologram projector, basically. So that's how it came around. So Hologauze is like a highly transparent, highly reflective scrim, essentially. And it's like, if you light it, it does depend on lighting. So it would look 100% sort of transparent if you get the right lighting in an auditorium. So it's been pretty successful. And the great thing about it is we can go to huge scales. So we can go skyscraper size screens, invisible screen, as big as you like. So we've been doing some very large projects around the world. We're constantly developing new types of scrims to do this. We've got R&D going on, but the hologram projector is still something that's is in the science fiction. We do get asked quite often, can you create something you can walk around, like something floating in the sky or in the air? And we have to say to the clients, it's science fiction, and what we're creating is actually a hologram effect. That's what we call it. It's not a hologram essentially, but that's the way we like to sort of, that's our angle on it.
The day we all can walk around it, we'll all be billionaires.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So David, if you want to kind of touch on where
Sure.
you are today. And
well, certainly the person who invents that thing you could walk around will be the billionaire. I don't know about all of us, but to kind of piggyback off of what Stuart was saying, I agree about the term hologram. I've stopped using the word hologram as much as I used to, just because it is not really a true hologram, but it is like a hologram-like effect. My company Portl, we just call it a portal effect or portal presence because it'll separate us from the term hologram, which is being used quite often. I used to run one of the world's largest hologram entertainment companies. It was Natascha's, I guess, competition company in the Pepper's Ghost space. And yeah, we were known for digitally resurrecting lots of late legends to posthumously perform. And then, I was thinking of a company of my own, and I wanted to kind of expand that space, but we've got 2 other people on the dais here, Jeff and Gary, who went off and did their own companies. Jeff went to Illusion and Gary went to Base, and they started digitally resurrecting artists. So I am not good with competition, and they were doing really great stuff. So I figured I'd go in the opposite direction and just shrink it into the size of a telephone booth. So now I do individual person hologram projection machines, far different from, and I said the word hologram again, which I got to put a quarter in the cookie jar now. But yeah, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. I love all the stuff that Stuart's working on as well. So it's exciting. It's fun to see the industry really start to open up a little bit. And with this pandemic, it's kind of teaching us a lesson that sometimes you have to look beyond just live entertainment, but you have to look at a way of communicating. And so that's what Portl is doing. It's a way to beam somewhere, not just to play back pre-recorded content.
Cool. And Jeff, do you want to kind of touch on where you guys are at the moment? And
Yeah. Well, I think that we basically 20 was, like I said, when I flew out to LA to sign that deal, I had no idea that the entire year was going to be basically a waste. But yeah, we have been just for, developing this one project that I was just talking about, which we haven't announced yet. And hopefully we'll announce as soon as I feel like it's worth the announcement. Obviously, with all the political nightmares and everything else, it just didn't seem like it was. I didn't want to throw something just into the wind. It's a big deal, so we want to wait for it. The other thing is this other project that we've gotten greenlit through one of the major management companies is going to be a big deal. It's an event that's going to take place in the UK. It's a Gordon Ramsay's going to be catering it, and it's going to be like it's like for high wealth individuals, but it's going to be it's going to have a virtual platform as well, so people can actually tune in to see it. So I'm excited to be a part of that. So that'll take place, like I said, August of this year. Assuming again, with all this pandemic stuff, the date moved. It was supposed to be May, and then it moved to August. So we'll see. We'll see where it ends up. And then we're hoping that maybe later in the fall, if not this year, then definitely next year we'll have our shows back on the road. We'll put the Zappa show back out. We'll put the Dio show back out. We'll have the new one we haven't talked about, and then we have that other one, which is the quote unquote residency, which will hopefully be developed somewhere through the end of this year, and then ready to go for next year.
Nice. Yeah, and Gary and Molly, if you kind of want to touch on, and it could go beyond what you guys are working on too, kind of where are we now with the technologies that you both are working with?
I might start then. I am involved in bringing resources to these visionary inventors like David Nussbaum, and I get to have a seat on his rocket ship at Portl, and it was very exciting. A couple of things that I've been involved in there is I introduced David to another company that I also work with, Storyfile, which has an AI, artificial intelligence enabling of holograms. They do that right now with Holocaust survivors, and now we have the ability to not only have live telepresence in the Portl and pre-recorded content with holograms, but also AI-enabled holograms, which is really revolutionary. So that's very exciting. I see many applications that I've been working on at Portl in the education space specifically. And we've done some demos at a university, and others are purchasing Portls, which is very exciting because it allows an instructor to be a force multiplier by having them in multiple campuses. And finally, I see holograms as a way to heal the world. And I'm working on really revolutionizing healthcare as we know it by putting holograms with patients as well as doctors and other applications. So there are so many great applications for holograms. And I know Gary, who I've been a big fan of his work and get to work with him at Portl as well, is doing some of the coolest stuff ever.
Hey, so Gary.
Okay, I have to live up to that. So yes, I am working on lots of new things. As I mentioned earlier, content's important to me. And I came across a new company recently who has new technology that's going to help me build faces, replicate voices, and do things better than we've ever done them before. As David said earlier, I got a lot done when I was at base. We put out Roy Orbison and Buddy Holly and Maria Callas and Whitney Houston, which all did very well. Whitney Houston, unfortunately, was affected by the COVID thing, not her personally. But the building of these new people, you know, imagine taking a Portl unit into a museum and having an exhibition of Muhammad Ali's trophies and boxing gloves, and having Muhammad Ali himself in a Portl unit talking to you, answering questions, taking pictures with you. That's the kind of thing that we're looking at. Also, I'm talking to a lot of living groups and artists who are not keen to go back out on the road, and building hologram shows for them, which would give them the ability to do a lot more on stage than they would otherwise be able to do, because of course with special effects we can have them doing crazy stuff, changing colors, flying around the stage, or whatever we choose to do. So you're going to see, I think, next year some new hologram shows of living people, big name living people, doing something very different. And I'd like to think that whether it's on Portl or whether it's on Hologauze, you're also going to see some new talent, which will look better than ever, because the technology is getting better than ever.
Nice. And I think you all touched on something so important. The last hologram I worked on with Ventana was we beamed in the CMO of AT&T from the Dallas Cowboys Stadium into the over 5G to speak with the CEO into the convention center. And, you know, it's a combination of the content and being able for that to happen, as well as the hardware for it to project. And I am totally with you, David, on the word hologram. I think, you know, I've probably called it everything, but it's all about the marketing and selling like a 3D hologram projected into an agency. They're like, what is that? So I'm sure one day we'll all come up with a better term or something that's more what it actually is. But I would love to kind of jump into the content. And is it more available now? How are you creating the content? And, you know, do you need volumetric capture for some of the holograms you're talking about? So if you can each touch on that, I think it'll be really important for the audience to kind of get a better sense of how this is created and why holograms are looking more realistic these days.
Well, I could start off there because I've got a content background, and I invented the screen really as a creative thing, not really a money-making thing. And I've noticed, you know, originally, you know, the basic way to do it is to film someone on a black stage or on a green screen. But what I've been finding with the people contacting us at the moment, the companies, there seems to be this explosion really in all these different technologies that we're having to, you know, we're having to explore and find out about. So, you know, with volumetric capture, motion capture, and CGI, and the AI thing we're doing now, and yeah, it's a really exciting time. There's a lot of scope, and seems to be, you know, it seems to be getting there for the content side, when before it was pretty standard, but there seems to be a lot more we can do now.
Natascha, I'm jealous of you when you were at Ventana. Were you at Ventana when you guys did the hologram of Kobe
Yes,
Bryant?
I actually produced it. So yeah. That was a very unique experience.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Los Angeles. I used to work with the team on the radio broadcast side years ago, and when I saw Ventana was doing the Kobe Bryant hologram, that was one of my more jealous moments. So congratulations on that. That's a you know, surprise to have that association. Yeah, on the content side, you know, I'm really focusing very heavily on live content. The ability to connect the world, the ability to have you know, a military vet beam across the world and be with his or her family on the, you know, in America, or have a COVID patient in a hospital, be able to see and interact with their loved ones who can't be physically in the hospital with them, or just to have, you know, Grandma and Timmy, you know, beam across the country and talk to each other, not like this, not like Zoom, but like real, right? And so with Portl, here goes my commercial again, but like with Portl, it is life size, and you can walk right up to it. There's no reflections and there's no external projectors, and it works in daylight. So it just plugs in and it becomes, I've lost Stuart, all right. But it's great because that is the, I think that is really where the future is going. And maybe at some point before we wrap this thing up, I'd love to just do a little, like a 12-second demonstration, if you'll allow me. Otherwise, I can.
Actually, if you send us the video, we'll put that in there, and we can, when you talk about it, we'll roll that in.
Yeah, I'll do that then. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I think that's sort of where my my content brain is going. I think it's going towards live, and I'll let everybody else fight over all the.
And on that, it would be helpful to know, are you guys using your own content? I know one thing that's been, and it's a cost prohibitive thing too, was, are you having to create the content? Are you able to use existing content? Are you able to use other people's content? You know, feel free to touch on that too. It's helpful to understand the larger picture of how this works.
Well, with us, we want to create our own content because the company was built with the concept of building a library. So the idea is use it once on a tour, then use it here, use it there, and basically have a library. People can use the content where they need it. You know, the touring thing was kind of like the low hanging fruit, the fruit to get the audience to see the shows. But you know, with anything, you want the long life. You know, it's just, that's the first bite at the apple, and then the content exists and you can utilize it other ways. You're always adding to the content as well. We wanted, you know, we felt specifically that, you know, content prior to ours was good, but we wanted to make it as perfect as possible. But we also didn't want it to be as polarizing. So we felt that the way to do it was to build incredible content around the artist. So, you know, it's just not about the quote unquote hologram. It's about the show, you know, and I think that's where, when we started doing this, if you ever saw the Bizarre World of Frank Zappa, the Frank Zappa hologram of just him, he's only on stage for maybe, you know, 5-6 songs. The rest of it is just incredibly insane animation that's done 3-dimensionally. And I think it's just it would set the bar for where a show could go. And, you know, it's tough to, I think it was tough to build to keep people engaged for 90 minutes, especially now the attention span is so short. So it's fun if you can actually crack that code. And I think that's what we've focused on. And it's not just about the quote unquote hologram, it's about the overall show.
I have to agree with Jeff, because we're mixing different media. We're working on a Portl DJ show at the moment, which will utilize not just AI, but LED screens and create lots of visual effects, of which the hologram is one of them. But the biggest advance, when David and I were working at Hologram USA, we pioneered and developed the use of prosthetics to build holograms. And then Jeff's done a lot of work with CGI, as David and I did as well, and I did at base. But there's new technology now, and it's, you know, face swapping and deep fake and everything else. And there's a new company with the best I've seen so far that just needs 2 minutes of footage of anybody that they can generate and superimpose back onto a body double so that it looks absolutely spot on and is effectively real. And they also have the ability, which has been around for a while, to generate the voice. So if it's not a singer where you're using the original recordings, say it was a politician or somebody giving a speech that doesn't really exist, all that can now be done. And this new technology is actually cheaper than everything else. Maybe not as cheap as prosthetics, because that's very inexpensive, but certainly much, much cheaper than CGI. And I think the results will look better. And I've enjoyed working with CGI, but, you know, things move on. And I don't know what's around the corner tomorrow, but this new technology that have come up very recently will be what I'll be using going forward, I think.
And I wanted to add, I think one of the most intriguing ways to use holograms, something that David Nussbaum did. His human self had a conversation with his hologram self in the Portl. And you just have to see this footage. It is the most unique, entertaining footage, but it really opens the door to think about what would life be like if we could have a conversation with our 10-year-old, 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 50-year-old self as time went on, our hologram selves. It opens up all kinds of new experiences for us and new ways of using holograms. And the other content area I wanted to emphasize is the medical, which, as I mentioned, I think is going to be truly revolutionary. Because imagine right now, those of us that are using telemedicine, which is very prominent right now during the pandemic, imagine if you could have a conversation with your doctor and he would have your entire hologram self. So you don't have to go into the office, but they could see in bold 4K resolution, you know, your throat or whatever, your rash on your face. I think this will be the future of the medical industry as we know it. So those are two exciting content areas enabled by Portl and the work that David Nussbaum invented.
You know, Molly, the reason why I created the hologram of myself was because I'm always just talking to myself anyway. Like, but so I figured if I had a hologram, I wouldn't look so strange doing it.
No, but this footage is priceless. I've watched it over 100 times. It's really intriguing to see.
That's a lot.
Content leads into another question. You know, we've talked about a lot of entertainment. You've mentioned medical. You know, one of my, and Jeff touched on it too, is attention span. One of my favorite stats is our attention span is now less than a goldfish. I think we're at 8 and the goldfish is at 9. Or so with that in mind, you know, working with the holograms is, you know, how do you capture someone's attention and how do you keep them engaged? And that could be across retail, entertainment. So I'd love to kind of hear from each of you guys, you know, what verticals are doing it right and what verticals beyond ones you've already talked about have benefited most from the use of holograms.
Maybe go again first, or
yeah. I mean, I'm just from my own experience. I mean, the Hologauze was used for, let's say, Beyonce, you know, having a performer, and then she can appear on stage with herself, and then multiple, you know, like she dances across the stage, and then there's an echo of her going behind her. You know, it's like, yeah, it's mind blowing. You know. So it's fantastic to see how people are using this technology to, you know, creative and frankly trippy kind of way. It's brilliant. I love it. And so yeah, obviously the entertainment industry is sort of live performance there's so many things you can do. It's like you've got these new layers that you never had before. You know, you can have all these layers that you know, you can composite a whole scene that we weren't able to do. So there's you know. That's where it's at for me. I think that's what I'm kind of involved in.
Yeah, and I want to mention the retail industry. Vertical holographic mannequins, I think, are going to become all the rage all over the world because of the cost savings and the entertaining value of them. We even saw during the holidays where Santa was created as a hologram so that people could still, through Ask Santa that Storyfile did, so people could still interact with Santa Claus. And I think for holidays that will become very popular, including with the Portl.
Content is going to win at the end of the day. So as long as you've got content creators and visionaries, then the platform, no matter what it is, whether it's hologram or whether it's social media or television, or any kind of digital platform, I think that's what's going to end up winning. So one of the things that Portl's doing is we're creating a studio app that will allow people to create their own content right on their phones. It'll have all of the same features of a projection studio, or a production studio. So shadows, reflections, color correction, resizing, rotoscoping. And so let the content creators, let all the TikTokers and the Instagrammers and the YouTubers, let them create content. And for Portl specifically, because there's enough space inside of each unit that will allow people to get extremely creative with the amount of space.
Can I just make a comment about your question about the attention span, and Jeff brought it up earlier. One of the things we never had an issue with any of the live shows that we put out was the audience getting bored, because at the end of the day, it's about the content, as in with music, it's about the hits. You put Roy Orbison up, he does all his hits, everyone's dancing, singing, treating it like a regular concert. So they don't get bored. We never got any criticism on that score at all. And I never expected us to, even though people in the industry had their doubts that people would sit there for 60 to 90 minutes and watch a show. If I wanted to put up a brand new artist and nobody knew the music, they'd get bored. But when you're dealing with the likes of Roy Orbison and Buddy Holly and Whitney Houston, they know everything, every song, and they forget after 2 minutes it's a hologram and enjoy it like a regular concert. And hopefully Jeff had that experience. When you're using Portl in advertising, and I use the example of when I was on a call with Sony, and I said, imagine putting a Spider-Man poster in a Portl that looks like a poster. And when somebody walks up to it, Spider-Man leans out of the poster and taps on the glass. That is something they're not going to see anywhere else. That is something they're going to take pictures of and retweet. So it's important for all of us to make sure that we use the hologram technology for what it was designed for. And that's a good example of that. So I don't think people are going to get bored. And obviously advertising and other uses is much shorter times than shows, but we never suffered from that problem with any of the shows, and hopefully Jeff didn't either.
Yeah, no, I think it's about being creative, and I think that's where that's why it's important to not, like I said, it's really easy to like, especially when you're creating a show, you to kind of just throw it together. But to Gary's point, it's like if you're creative about it, and the songs are great, but if you have a show to go along with it, it just sells it all the way through. And the idea is to really capture the younger audience as well. So you want younger people to come to see an artist they didn't see. We had a lot of young kids at our shows because their parents took them. But the idea was, if you make something spectacular to look at, it's not just about the songs these kids don't know. It's about what they're looking at, because that's what the younger people pay attention to, is how cool it is. You know, what they see on their phones, what they see on the screens, whatever. So we wanted to really go the extra mile, and yes, it's fun when you feel like you have cracked that code, because it is.
I think we.
One of the things that Jeff was just talking about, though, and I think because Gary is, we lost him already, but Jeff and Gary specifically, how many different estates have contacted you that you just didn't think had like enough, you know, star power, right? There's probably a lot, right? So like what Natascha was saying about, you know, what can keep somebody's attention, you got to have a star, especially if you're going to bring somebody back. With a live person, it's not necessarily as important as a late legend. And I just know that I got contacted by like dozens of artists who you've heard of, but it just wasn't right to bring them back as a digital resurrection.
But that's also because it was at the time extremely expensive to build them, and it didn't make sense financially. As those costs are coming down, you might see more of those, not fringe artists, but you know, smaller artists finding their voice again via hologram.
And I just wanted to add, since you mentioned the financial side, there is a lot of investors out there that are writing big checks to support the work that everyone on this panel is doing, and others. So if you're in the audience and you're developing something, know that there is a path to financing, and it's a really good time to be out there, even if you're in the earlier stages.
Yeah,
no, we got contacted by a lot of different artists, and some of them are very funny states, because you say, yeah, you know, that's just not, I don't see how that's going to play out. You know, and we get some crazy requests anyway. Some people think it's like they can just send in a VHS and it's done, and make this a hologram. But you know, we like to go the extra mile, and I think that, you know, people, I don't say criticized, but I think, you know, people thought that I was crazy with Ronnie James Dio. He's one of my favorite artists. He's an iconic singer. He's an iconic artist. You know, singer for Black Sabbath and Rainbow and Dio. And that was the one I wanted to start with, because I wanted to get off to that, on that path, and say, you know, the reason I'm doing this is to prove that this guy was a fringe artist per se to some, but he needs to be heard by the next generation, because that was my goal of this company. So how do you pass a legacy? That's how you do it. You know, it's not to me, it wasn't about the top at the beginning. It was about, how do you get somebody who people should hear out in front of an audience again? That was kind of the conceptual behind what I was doing.
No, that's great. And yeah, and my point on the retention was using the holograms to, you know, engage people. And I think the best thing is the content is king, and it's what's going to capture that attention. I think the biggest thing I always say is like, someone come like, oh, let's just do this with the hologram. I'm like, no, like you can do whatever you want. He could be hanging backwards, upside down. There could be flames coming, like, and I think the combining the real with the, you know, 3D assets makes it fun, because you have to have fun with the content. I think that's so important when I always say it's storytelling through a different medium, and it's that medium that we're all kind of talking about here. We have about 5 more minutes, and I know I really wanted to touch briefly on some of the challenges you're facing if any, with the industry, besides there not being events right now, in person at least, or maybe that's not a challenge. And or would love to kind of hear too, what's in store for the next year or 5 years in this space. So if you guys want to just all kind of recap that, any challenge or kind of where you see this in 1 year, 5 years from now.
I might start.
Go for it.
I might start talking about social distancing, and right now during the time of the pandemic, where people are very isolated, they've actually done studies, and if you're on a Zoom like we are now, it doesn't replace that human interaction that we all need to have the endorphins released, but holograms, like through the Portl, does. So there's actually a big medical positive side of interacting with holograms during this time, during this challenging time, that is remarkable. And I think that will propel, my prediction is that will propel the widespread adoption of holograms and eventually put a Portl in every home.
I'd like to say, I think the word is at the moment is this whole kind of performer on stage hologram thing is just going to be huge. I think there's articles I've been seeing recently about it. And now because of the social distancing, it's possible that we are going to be a lot more remote, a lot less traveling around. So the Portl thing's brilliant, things like that. And with my products as well, where you can transport someone abroad and they don't have to actually go on the plane. So, that's very exciting, all that stuff.
Gary,
I
Jeff,
put on a virtual background because I had to change offices. But look, I really appreciate you guys saying the very nice things about Portl. I'm a huge fan of all of yours. I think in the next several years, what we have of the ability to connect people from far apart, I think you're going to see that much more often. Companies like Zoom, are exploding right now. I also think a lot more, I think people aren't going to go out for their entertainment as much. Look at Peloton and look at Mirror. They're doing their exercises at home, and look at Masterclass. They don't have to go to school anymore. So I think if you could beam in artists, if you could beam in educators, if you could beam in religious leaders and inspirational speakers into portals, into your homes or into your offices, I think that is the direction that I think a lot of us want things to go in.
Gary,
yeah, I would agree that the the next 5 years is going to be really exciting for the space. I do think that these iconic artists that are older now do want their legacies to be passed, so they are going to have other alternatives because they're not making money in recorded music anymore, so they have to be out there performing some way or the other. So this is the way to do it. You create, and we have shows that you can actually be putting all over the world in different, whether it's resorts, casinos, what do you call it, tour, the cruise ships, where people can see these artists perform where they never could have seen them before, where they're actually them. I think that's going to be a big deal for us and for the future for the space. I think that continuing to allow artists, even younger artists, to perform. There's just so many opportunities, especially with the way the world is now. And I think that until we get this quote unquote pandemic under wraps, it's going to be a while before people feel comfortable to go travel the world again, like they have in the past. So I think there's just it could explode the space, and you're going to see a lot of the especially the older artists, but all artists be involved and do something exciting, just because they know they can. And once they see what's available to them, it's like a domino. And I'm sure Gary and David and everyone feels this way, that once the first domino falls, it just kind of everything, once somebody does it, everyone wants to do it. The music industry has been a copycat industry since its inception. So it's one of those things that, once one does it, it's very common.
Gary, final thoughts, and then I'm going to ask one quick final question to everyone.
I think the challenge for everybody is something that David has actually answered, which is getting holograms into homes. It's fine to go out and see them, and that's proved to be very successful, but having mini portals in homes, millions of homes around the world, is going to create brand new content. It's going to create an experience that people have never had before. However long COVID lasts, it will be good for COVID, and it'll be good way past COVID. So I think that challenge has been met. I think what we're going to see in the next 5 years is development in terms of the content and the technology, but also way beyond what we've been doing, which is mainly been music artists. You're going to see religious leaders, politicians, people who've passed from all walks of life, and also people, you know, record grandma now in story files, save her for the next 20 years for when the kids grow up. Those are all things that are being developed now, and I think we'll see them take hold within the next 5 years.
Awesome. Well, as I do my recap, I want each of the speakers to get ready to tell me your favorite hologram you've ever seen. It doesn't have to be yours. You've done it. It could be one you saw. But as you're thinking about that, I just want to thank everyone for attending today's session. Thank DreamlandXR with the CS Partner Program, and Stuart, David, Molly, Jeff, and Gary. So as we end, Stuart, favorite hologram you've ever seen or experienced?
Well, I have to talk about one that we were involved in, which was Lady Gaga at the Grammy Awards, and David Bowie had just died. I'm a huge David Bowie fan, and she's behind the screen, and she has these LED rings that emanate smoke, and then they form David Bowie's head above her, floating in space. So that was just like, I'm done. You know, I've made the product, and does it get any better than that? Yeah.
Awesome. David.
And it's Bowie's birthday today too, if he were still alive.
Oh, of course, I should know that.
He would have been 74.
Yeah.
You know, one of the most fun ones that we worked on pre-Portl was when, and it was before Bass got the rights to Whitney Houston, but we digitally resurrected Whitney Houston, and she performed on the final episode of Christina Aguilera's season on The Voice, and she performed a duet with Christina Aguilera. It never ended up airing because of a big controversy, and I think that actually ended up making that controversy ended up making holograms sort of a thing for a second there, just because the excitement of bringing somebody back to perform with somebody who idolized her growing up and maybe even became an artist because of who she was, but then for it to not air, everybody wanted to go online and watch it. More people probably watched it online that it was canceled than if it had actually aired.
Very cool. I know we have like 30 seconds, so Molly,
I might jump in here. My favorite one is David Nussbaum's human self talking to his hologram self, because it really shows you that in the future, you can use a hologram to help you with anything, anywhere, anytime. And that's why they're going to be in every home. We're going to want our holograms to help us through the day.
Gary, favorite hologram?
I have to say, even though it was one of mine, the Whitney Houston, because it just took everything to a whole new level, and I was extremely proud of it, and hopefully you'll all get to see it when it goes back on the road and see exactly what I mean.
Very good.
Yeah, I'd say my first one, because it was in front of 75,000 people in Germany when we debuted Ronnie James Dio. I think that was, covered by Rolling Stone. It was us throwing the gauntlet down without anybody knowing we were doing it. So to me, it's just still one of my most exciting moments.
Awesome. And I was going to throw in my favorite hologram ever was with Ventana, and you got to serve a tennis ball to Roger Federer, your hologram next to his, and that's just seeing Roger serve a tennis ball to himself was like very cool. But anyways, want to thank DreamlandXR again, all of our panelists, Stuart, David, Molly, Jeff, and Gary. So excited to see what's to come in the future, and I hope all of you guys enjoyed this and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Be safe.
See you soon.